CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Today we got a special episode, and you're like, Greg, you say that all the time, but you know what? What's really important for everybody out there, and I think if you're already a follower and you check it out, episode here, episode there, I try to get some real value for people. Also for myself, I get to learn from great people. So today we're going to learn about the American Tank and Fabricating Company. You may know that as ATNF. And we're also going to learn about Lytix. And what Lytix is doing is optimizing maintenance one task at a time. And there's a hell of a lot more to it than that. I've got a great guest for you. He's an expert guest. He's, what I like to call a bona fide expert because he's been there. He's done that. He's been in the trenches. He's also got a background that a lot of you might know that I'm very fond of, military background. And that's important to me for a lot of different reasons. We won't go down that wormhole, but today we're going to meet Chris Smith. And let's just jump into it, man. Chris, welcome to CMMS Radio.
Greg, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, this is going to be a blast. Now, you and I happen to know somebody in common, and I'm talking about Brian Bieski. He himself being a CMRP, he himself having a military background. But when I talk about people being bona fide experts, they've been in the trenches, they've done your job, and they get it. I'm not necessarily saying so many people don't get it, but what I really mean is when you kind of can put it all together, you're trying to add value, you're trying to drive things forward for an organization, for yourself, for your team. That shit gets me excited because people need to hear about it. So the first thing I wanted to ask about is, I love journey stories, and whether everybody else is doing them, I don't care what everybody else is doing. I care about this right here, right now, you and I talking about it. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got into the maintenance space overall, and then I want to hear about both companies, but to start out, we want to talk about AT&F. So journey story, get us there.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, I started out about 30, I've been in this business about 30 plus years now. So I started out in the late 80s, early 90s in Atlanta, Georgia. Actually, I take that back, Austell, Georgia, at a paper mill. Long before OSHA was really thought about, long before we worried about safety, and long before automation really took in. And so I was hired on at the ripe old age of 18 as an operations and maintenance apprentice, which, basically means I'm the gopher guy. The senior folks told me what to do, and I got all the good dirty work. So love that, though. That was my introduction into maintenance. We dealt with over 150 yards of, which 6-foot steam dryers. We made, it was called Austell Boxboard Corporation. I'll never forget it. You got 1 day off a week, 1 extra day off a month, worked rotating 8-hour shifts. I just fell in love with the maintenance industry. Every time they handed me a wrench and told me to go clean a screen or go deal with the felts, I had a ball. And I loved it more in production, and I never turned around. So that's how I got into the maintenance business. Like I said, that was 30 years ago. Not long after that, though, I decided to make a little bit of change. I wanted to be part of something even bigger than myself, and I decided to join the U.S. Navy. I joined that in 1994. I did 12 years of service up through 2007. I got out for one of the best reasons ever, and that was because I decided I wanted to be a full-time daddy and not a full-time sailor. So that was over 17 years ago. My daughter's 17 now. So once I got out in 2007, I went into the steel industry. So I worked at steel mills here. While I was working there, I was a ladleman. I worked on 90-ton ladles, doing the maintenance on those, dealing with the track system, crane systems, and everything else. And I kind of just interjected myself with maintenance more and more and more. Finally, they decided they were going to do an upgrade. They went from a legacy CMMS system, DataStream 7i. I don't know if you've heard it. I think it's an Infor product now.
Yeah.
But they decided to go to Oracle EAM. And so they needed a CMMS administrator. I was like, well, I've done that. I was in the Navy. We did our 52-week schedules, did it in pencil, planned out our maintenance, did the materials management 3M thing. I thought, I can do this. I've got a background in this from the military. So that's where I owe the military everything. That was my first step into the administrative, or what I call the nerdy side of maintenance. And that's where I went. They hired me on as the CMMS administrator, and I began the implementation of an Oracle EAM for a large steel mill here in Cleveland, Ohio. And then after that, it kind of just built my love and my passion for CMMS systems and the magic behind it. There's something about the fact that as you build out this system and you see the system come alive, you're getting your assets set up correctly, and you're getting a good breakdown, a good taxonomy of what you need in that equipment. And then you start creating that PM plan, and then you see that PM plan executed, and then you see the effect it has on the reactive side of maintenance, and how you can actually see that curve starting to go where you want it to go, and you start to feel that control over it finally. There's no better feeling. It's about the same as the days when I was turning wrenches and I said, I fixed it. So
Yeah.
it's about the same feeling for me. So economy took a downturn, steel took a downturn. So I actually went into facilities, and I did some work for Johnson Controls. They ran a contract using Maximo for the Key Bank account here in Cleveland, Ohio. We had technicians all over the country for Key Bank, so I helped optimize Maximo for them. Which, interesting story, the folks that I contacted and I worked with, their IT center was in Manila, so I dealt with them consistently. So it was working at night on the Maximo side, then coming in the morning and dealing with the technician side of it. So that was pretty exciting. Did that as consultant work. When I was finally done with that, I ended up working for the public transportation here in Cleveland, Ohio. So it's the Greater Cleveland Regional Transportation Authority, and I was in charge of handling the maintenance for the rail cars here. Did that for about 12 years. Went to do another stint where I helped out a company bring their CMMS system online called PCC Airfoils. I helped bring their maintenance department in line, helped them optimize their CMMS system, showed them a few tricks or two, and then here I am at ATNF, and I'm loving it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's my journey. Wham!
Yeah, I like it though. I like it because you got all. So what happens, in my experience, when I get to talk to, especially someone like you that's been there and done that, I've seen a lot of systems out there, but for many years I was providing a system and looking for those opportunities for how can I help somebody. And on one hand, yeah, I want to sell my software, but we were hyper focused on why we built it in the first place as the way we delivered it. And what I like about your journey story is that we get kind of this, I'm going to say, eclectic experience. You've worked with multiple systems. And the good thing about that is you know exactly what you're looking for. You know that whatever the CMMS is, you're going to find a way to squeeze the value out of it and make it work for your team. And I'm assuming that when it comes to these concepts of like user adoption and all that, which I want to get into, where you might encounter resistance and you might have to come up with, well, how do I connect this for the team? How do I make sure it's connected to the business? Leadership wants this, this, and this. Maintenance team wants that, that, and that. And then how do I put those together and make them look and feel like, even with dashboards. So having experience with multiple systems helps you understand, how does this really work? You can start to recognize those different opportunities. And like currently right now, you don't use any of those systems you were just talking about. You use a different system, right?
That is correct.
And if I were venturing a guess,
it would be Upkeep.
There you go. And we're talking offline about, I'm an Upkeep ambassador. Recently, I dropped an episode. Well, actually today, but this episode we're doing will come out a couple weeks, couple months. Who knows, right? I dropped an episode about another Upkeep ambassador, Sonia Mathura, and there's like 10 of them. And what's cool about that whole thing, and the reason I'm talking about it, is not like, hey, I want you to buy Upkeep software. Sure, I do, but I work with other ones too. I try to stay kind of in the middle. I got some that I don't love. I don't love the full-blown enterprise systems because they get so complicated that I can't keep it simple. Keep it simple, sailor, if I'm allowed to say that. And So I want to talk about a couple of things as it relates to the current environment with AT&F. How have you found success getting the team to adopt and utilize the platform? Were there challenges? How did you overcome them? And then if you could mix in a little bit about how your CMMS provider actually helps with that from a customer success perspective, or maybe some of the great knowledge you have with ambassadors or otherwise. How does that all come together? Talk to us about that.
So the way I got buy-in, and we'll start there with my team. So I have a 4-member team, and part of the problem is we were using an ERP system, and our enterprise resource planning system. And so with that system, what I always like to say, and my analogy to it, is that an ERP is extremely static. It is fantastic for a static 1, 2, 3, 4 process. So if I've got a planner at a desk, I'm talking about a production planner at a desk, and we need to do cut, shape, weld, fabricate. An ERP system is fantastic at that. That is exactly what they're designed for. And then usually what happens with an ERP system, oh yeah, let's add a maintenance function to it. And that's usually what happens. And so the afterthought is the maintenance function. So you get all this great functionality for the production side of the house, but maintenance has got to kind of figure it out along the way. So one of the things that, when I started here at AT&F, I didn't have a problem with the ERP system. It was usable, but it was static. And I'm kind of a dynamic person, and I know where maintenance technicians belong. We belong in the field. We need to do the work there in the field. And one of the things I've always said is, I need the folks on hand, on task as much as possible. We have a lot of old equipment here. Some of our equipment is 60 years old, some of our larger presses. So we've got older equipment here that we need to stay on top of. On top of that, I expect my team members to be leaders in the field. We're the experts of the equipment. So how do I support that? By not bringing them back to their desk every 5 minutes, every time. I got to clock in at my desk. Now I got to run out to the field. Oh, I forgot something. I got to come back. I got to go back for. So I got all this waste, and that waste is kind of a pet peeve of mine. There's got to be a better way, and that's always the first question I ask myself anywhere I go: is there a better way? So digging into it, I looked at 2 or 3 different options for CMMS systems, and over time, I think just looking at everything they had to offer, Upkeep pulled my attention. So I began working with Dylan, who was my representative, and I started working with him more and more and more, digging in. And I think Upkeep was bugging my bedroom or my office, because as I would speak and look through the documentation and think about what I'd need, I said, it sure would be nice if they did this. Lo and behold, a week or so later, on their Friday updates, oh, look, there it is. One of them was, the ability to do cycle counts. And lo and behold, there it came. Then I was thinking, well, it sure would be nice if I could separate my purchasing from parts and have some sort of a custom line item, because as a small team, we need contractors. So I would love to be able to separate that out. Lo and behold, here comes the customize. So that's kind of where it started. So to get the buy-in from my team, I said, would it be easier for you guys to be able to work in the field and make your notes as you go? And they said, well, yeah. So I dug in, and I got the single account for myself. And I said, put it on your cell phones, use my account, let's test this. Let's test a theory. And that's the best way. I feel that anytime you're going in front of your leadership team and you want to make a change, because understand this, we already had a system in play. So I'm asking for additional funding to put something entirely different in play that was already there.
Yeah.
And we're talking about AT&F has, we have branches in Orville and Manitowoc, Wisconsin. So we have 3 branches, and this was going to be an enterprise-wide push that from here on out, we were going to do maintenance out of Upkeep. So the theory of testing is the way we did it. And I sent them out in the field, and they loved it. They had the ability to pop onto their phone and go through the checklist. If they had an issue with it, they were able to get a hold of me, and I could make the change just like that. See, that's something you can't do with an ERP system. An ERP system always has a sysadmin or a system administrator, And 9 times out of 10, if you have an issue, you have to design the issue, submit the issue with an IT ticket, wait for it to be completed, test it, debug it, send it back, and then request it back. And then eventually your PM plan is implemented. Well, that doesn't work. Where does maintenance need to be? In the driver's seat of maintenance. And that's what Upkeep provided. It put maintenance in the driver's seat.
Yeah. So now I don't think we recorded this at all on this episode, but we were talking about it before I hit record, I think, where myself in the past, having been a co-founder, original team, bringing a CMMS platform to market and basing it, in the foundational elements of what we already knew and understood about maintenance, facilities maintenance, other types of maintenance management overall. That's a critical component of this idea of working with a platform that doesn't only meet the needs of the team that's actually going to use it, but gives you that ability to move faster on those elements that are maintenance centric, so to speak. Whereas with the ERP system, because we're not trying to say anything bad about ERP systems at all. I mean, ERP for what it is, what it does, whoever provides it, of course, we want it to be one that actually works, where they actually get it, which I think a lot of times they do. They're going to have their own limitations. And then another thing that happens out here in this big bad world of maintenance management and CMMS is we're a CMMS, but we're also an EAM. And yeah, we might be an ERP and all that. And it's confusing for everyone. So what you did was smart, because when you can put it in the hands of the team and get that support and proof ahead of time before you go to leadership, now it's like, hey, not only do we want to get this, we took some steps without disrupting our day to day. We did a little bit of work to really put it into play. And now we've got some substantial buy-in, and we can show you what we can really do with this. Because leadership, as much as they care, do they have time to stop and care and sing kumbaya with you? No, they got balance sheets to deal with. And one of the central themes, like if we talk about, I'm sure you're familiar with asset operations when it comes to not just the book that came from Ryan Chan, but a lot of the contributors, like real industry experts, certified maintenance and reliability professionals, engineers, et cetera, everybody that contributed to that. They're trying to show you where the rubber meets the road and how to connect it to the business. So it sounds like you did an excellent job of that. I want to kind of switch gears into one particular thing about Upkeep, or anybody in general, when it comes to this world of CMMS platforms. How critical is it, in your view, that they really do understand having a pretty strong lineup and deep bench of people from the actual maintenance industry, let alone how Ryan came up with the concept in the first place 14 years ago? Actually, it's getting a little bit longer than that now, because I have a story about that too. But how important is it, that element, when it comes to helping you? Hey, I've got a problem. Go ahead and work with my, senior field technician, or one of the guys that's on the plant floor, and you're not there to kind of babysit or anything. You have this confidence. How important is that in your view?
It's extremely, extremely important. So, the big world of maintenance management, we have now become also part of that do more with less mentality. So we go more into than just sitting behind a desk and worrying about the maintenance of we're into asset health now. We get into ROI. We're the business side now. And that's a huge thing that folks need to understand, is that now maintenance, we're driving maintenance from being a cost center to a business unit. And that's how we want people to see us, is that we are indeed a business unit. While we don't make revenue profits, the way we create money for the company is through lean maintenance management, by reducing downtime, increasing your uptime, increasing your reliability, and allowing the equipment to be online when a product needs to be made. We're a business unit. We're not a cost center. And so having the ability, and especially for me with a small team, I mean, I have 4 members, 600,000 square feet. You know, that's a lot of space and a lot of assets to cover with 4 folks. And I've got 2 electrical and 2 mechanical. And I couldn't be prouder of them. So let me just put that out there for everybody. Some of the best team I've ever worked with. But what is important to me is allowing them to be leaders upon themselves in maintenance. And by being able to put all the information they need to be a leader in nothing more than this is incredible. You know, I don't have to stand next to them. They can make updates to whoever put the work request in, which I love that ability. You know, one of the number one complaints you get a lot of times when you start interviewing plant managers or operations personnel, I didn't know maintenance was done. I don't know where maintenance stands right now. Where are we on our equipment? What's happening with the equipment? They get 360-degree feedback nonstop. Every time we make a click of a button inside Upkeep, whoever the requester was now knows. And that's huge. That saves me time to allow me to deal with other avenues that I need to deal with. It allows my team to continue steadily working forward without having to backtrack and or forgetting to communicate where they are right now. It's a huge aspect of putting the power in the hands of my team to take over and take charge. I love it. It has to happen that way. There's no way for us as a maintenance community to move forward anymore unless we start putting the power of maintenance in maintenance's hands, which is the teams that go out and do the work.
Yeah, and that brings me to you know, kind of one of the central themes I'm always trying to shout about is this idea. This might piss some people off, but this is the absolute truth. Nobody cares about your features. Nobody cares about your product. They care about their problem, and they care about where they're going.
Right.
And if the problem that you're trying to solve, which in this case, when we really take a look at it, small, huge, or anywhere in the middle, when it comes to an operational organization, something that operates and requires maintenance to, at the end of the day, maintenance is being done. The real reason is to create availability of
equipment
machines
for production. Yep.
that produce the equipment, or I should say the products that we provide, that generate the revenue, that employ the people, and then the people that buy those products want a high quality product so that they can keep their operations running and deliver what they deliver. And it's this thing, right? It's systematized, but there's so much variability within, but it's all about that availability. And I think what makes me excited when we talk about systems like this, whether it's Upkeep or something else, I mean, really, what we're trying to do, that's why I say nobody cares about your product. Nobody cares about your features. But now, if I want to bring that full circle, because I'm a guy that's always chasing this elusive win-win. I want the customer that I sell to that gives me their money to win, because then I get to win. And everybody's like, well, how does that work for your podcast? I'm like, I don't know, man. You decide. I want good, real information. I want to get people thinking. But when we talk about the platform, now I'm going to bring it back and explain why now, once we've got a solution and it's implemented and we have buy-in, now we care about the features. Now we care about the product, because you already brought it up, being able to utilize this phone. And when this was built, so now I'm going to tell you that story because I told you I would. 2014. I'm at a conference. Now, I worked for a solution provider where we built our own from the ground up based on our own system and all this kind of stuff. And we're out there at this conference. We didn't have a booth. I went to walk the floor and kind of, I don't know if I was suitcasing, but I just wanted to learn and have fun. And it was a great conference. It's called NFMT, National Facilities Management and Technology Conference. And they do it in Vegas like every other year. So I'm out there 2014. And Ryan Chan walks up to me, and he can see on my badge who I am and who I'm with. And we start talking, and he's showing me the platform before it's an actual company, meaning to say he hadn't like gone to market. He was just trying to solve a problem and really do all the proof points. And what he did that I thought was really cool, because the way I looked at competition back then, and even now, it's like, I think it's cool to have competition because it gives you an idea that what you're doing is much needed out there in the market. I know I'm not using a bunch of fancy terms from Harvard and all that crap, throw it out the window. And he said, hey, do you mind looking at this? Because I'd love to get some feedback on it. And so now fast forward, I went back when I flew back to the office, and I brought someone from the company with me to learn a bunch of stuff about CMMS providers, about the industry, facilities people, maintenance people, how they really, what they care about, what they really care about. I get back to the office, and our actual founder, someone I grew up with, his name is Sean. He's watching us from above now. So Sean, this is for you. I walk through the door and I'm like, dude, we got a problem. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, there's a solution that's coming out, and it is built mobile first.
Yep.
And he's like, oh. And he said, why are you worried about it? And I said, well, worried, not so much. More so, hey, this is kind of what somebody should be doing. And we're trying to turn the corner. We already had some mobile functionality of our own, but in other words, what I'm trying to say here is I loved it. I was like, this is smart, right? And so now here we are, 2024, heading towards 2025. They've got their mobile first platform. It's making a difference. They got the right kind of people that can understand their teams. And you've been able to find that ability to get good, strong user adoption after you did a pilot, and you use the pilot to also
sell it.
To not only sell it to leadership, but to connect everything to the business. But what you get with that pilot is you already have the buy-in that everybody knows, oh, we found this great solution. We're going to go out and get it. We found a good CMMS. And in this case, we're talking about Upkeep. And what usually happens? Crickets after that. You sign a contract, you pay your bill, you start using it. Somebody does a couple of work orders here and there, and nothing happens after that.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And
you've done the opposite.
Data. So the nice thing about it, Greg, is we've got the data now, and it shows. So April is when I began the implementation of it.
Yeah.
And so you'll see, because you have the analytics side of it. So I've got so you see it, and, it's funny to look back at it. And I look at it, and I've got, 25 work requests put in. And that's kind of really me and my maintenance guys. We're just kind of playing with the system.
Yeah.
But we had this devious thought process, and we knew that we had to go through our VP of operations and our VP of finance to get this approved. So we put into play this test. You want to call it a beta test, whatever you want. We had to show the ROI value. We knew that's where we were going to have to go. We knew we were going to have to prove what the system can do and why is it better than what we're doing now. And as I discussed earlier, we're now putting ourselves in the driver's seat. But will the car go? Will it do anything? Will it perform like we need it to? And Dylan was huge on that, constantly checking in with me and making sure, hey, is it doing what you need? Are you okay? How's this working for you? I love it. So we were able to put that data in, and it's funny, you see, by then, as we're testing it, the shop personnel, the operations and production side is starting to work their way in and go, what are you doing? What's happening? What's that? That's pretty cool looking. What are you doing? I said, oh, then so now my technicians are going, oh yeah, you can put a work request in just with the phone. Oh, you see this barcode, this Q code? Boop, look at this. There it is. We can do that now. I don't have to run to a station at the other end of the building to put in a work request. And then by the time I got there, I forgot what my problem was.
Yeah.
No, just do it right there. Oh, and you could take a picture from your phone, add that to the work request. So we get a better idea. So we get a better description. I don't know how many times my guys have been able to look at a picture and go, I know where that's at. I'll be right back. Those are all huge, huge things. And then the other best part of it is I don't chase my team anymore because I know exactly where they are. Because when they get on site and they hit in progress, I know where they are. I know what they're working on. I know what they're doing. And I can report out constantly. The constant feedback with it. I can't stress that enough. But it makes you feel like you're back in control. But the beauty behind it is as we're building all this data, and you see that little 25 or something like that, and I finally go to the VP of operations and I say, let me show you something. Well, I've got a month and a half's worth of data. And it just so happens at the time we were dealing with some reliability issues. And I was able to go online and start showing him, as we sat down and said, well, here's your assets. I said, but now I can work with production. I said, check this out. Click, I'm in calendar view. I said, I can take this calendar and compare it to production. Excuse me. Now, production knows what I'm doing. I know what production's doing. and we don't create unnecessary downtime. You know, I read years ago in a book, downtime is bad regardless of planned or unplanned. When it comes to production, unplanned or planned downtime, regardless of what it is bad. So now we have the ability to tweak it and to move inside there and work with production. Oh, that equipment's coming down anyway for a production downage. Well, I'm going to swoop in and take that time slot. Oh, and so they can see my calendar. I can compare it to their calendar from the ERP system. And I'm like, oh, we've got the opportunity. Let's take care of this. I can't stress enough how important it is to put your team back in control. You know, for long times, we've done maintenance where the CMMS systems were still kind of bulky and they were desktop oriented. And no matter what, we had to keep coming back to the desk, losing valuable time. It was hard to coordinate with it. They were fancy, but they didn't reach the true core of what maintenance needed. Upkeep did. By starting here and giving my team everything they needed as they moved and worked throughout the plant, but then turning around and giving me the analytics side so that I could make the decisions and help my leadership team make informed decisions. They covered all aspects. They're only missing one thing Upkeep has made, and I'm scared to say it out loud because it's been a dream of mine. I think it should happen. So they already created the ability to put a work request in verbally. You know, they have the audio side of it. And I've always said I would love it if my technicians could just say, start mic, and as they troubleshoot or as they conduct the maintenance, they just talk. And it captures through voice capture what they're doing, what they've done, you know, what tools they used, where did they have an issue, how they brainstormed, you know, and it was able to pick that up. You know, I always joked around, I said, it's hard sometimes to get a tech to come back to the desk or to type in everything. They'll forget the notes. But if you ask them what they did, they'll talk to you for 45 minutes about how they fixed it.
That's a fact.
That. You know,
that's a fact.
You know, they won't type it in here, but if you ask them what they did, you'll get everything you needed to know. And if they could somehow or another just remove me as the middleman and put it on here, the world would be solved.
What's really interesting about you mentioning this is, so there was something online recently, a gentleman by the name of, his name's Bill Bartow, and he had put something out there with an image of a phone and kind of a similar concept. It gets into that realm. And then I had chimed in about it. I don't remember exactly what I said. Somebody else chimed in and they're like, well, it seems like it would be easy and you could do that with some AI and all this. And I said, well, yes, but no. And the reason is there's so much variability. And then, you know, it's not like you have a single instance legacy system where you're boxed in and you can tell it what to do and make it do all this crazy stuff, because that just isn't much of a thing anymore. Doesn't mean there's not a bunch of legacy systems out there, but when you do that, there's a much bigger picture of how that really works. But I will tell you this, I think talking about it, not just here, but you know, you've probably talked to them about it. I know they do a lot of strong things when it comes to the product side and staying in touch with their entire user base, which I have been saying for years is the actual secret to your own success. If you're a CMMS provider, it's not trying to figure out, look, I might be wrong. Anybody who doesn't agree, it's fine. I'm not trying to be right here. I'm saying I don't care about the competition as much as I care about my client base, because my client base is my lifeblood as a company, which is why the elusive win-win actually works, because you get what you want, we get what we want. We're all thriving together. All ships rise with the tides together, all this kind of stuff. And now when we keep talking about that and we keep them informed, they'll try to build it when it makes sense, if they can figure it out. It's not that they're not trying to figure it out. People have been trying to figure this out for years, and they figure it out this much and it's good. And then when you try to scale that, it starts to fall apart because there's so many moving parts within the platform. But I love what you're talking about. And I think we're going to keep that inside the episode because, see, Upkeep's not afraid to hear about this. A lot of the other companies out there, especially right now of late, they're not afraid to hear the truth about what you want them to build for you. And then they need to find that alignment across their entire client base anyway. and they just need to keep doing it. By the way, everybody out there, what I'm really saying is, if you're a CMMS provider, your product team, your marketing team, your everybody needs to be talking to on some kind of frequency, cadence, if you want to use cadence. Talk talk to your clients and let them talk to you freely. Just let them tell you what they're trying to do. If it's pie in the sky and it's just not possible, it's okay to tell them that, but let them tell you first what they envision, and quit saying, "Oh, it's just not that easy." Nobody cares about that. Let's just hear what they want to try to do. So I think that's cool. What we used to do was just leverage the phone itself having that talk to text capability, but be careful with that. Double check what you're about to save, because it sometimes makes up words that you didn't mean to say. So,
Or a couple of times when you bust that knuckle on something. Yep.
oh yeah, yeah. We don't want that in there. But I love the idea. I love the concept, and I think we'll see something around it. I think we'll see something with the machine learning, the AI, and all that kind of stuff. But this is really awesome. I want to switch gears because you have a venture on the side that I would really like to talk about. And this one is called Task Lytix. And that's task. Everybody typically knows how to spell task, Task, and it's Lytix, Lytix. So for anybody out there, you want to check it out, you're going to go to Task Lytix, TaskLytix.com. But this is something you're kind of working on the side. It touches a passion area of yours where you see there's kind of a gap that needs to be filled out there. And it relates to CMMS. It also relates to maintenance and reliability best practices. It relates to the real difference making activities that clients around the US and maybe even the world really need to hear it from someone that's been there. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, why that exists, and what you're trying to do with it for people?
So I started Tasklytics October of 2023 with a common theme that I see anywhere I go as a maintenance manager, where I've worked with CMMS administrators throughout, 2 decades worth of work. And I saw a theme or a trend of problem areas. And it started with, four simple areas within the CMMS, and then the one area that's not inside the CMMS. So with the CMMS, the first thing I noticed that is always seems to be an issue is what I call poor asset hierarchies, or a bad taxonomy not set up. The ISO 14224 tells you how to set one up, but it always surprised me, and I don't know, it doesn't anymore, but it did in the beginning, when I would go on to, or I would take charge of a maintenance department, and the first thing I do, I dig right into the CMMS system because I'm quickly trying to learn what is happening throughout this department and what's happening throughout the plant. That is my quick way. I don't want to know the good. I know the good is we put parts out. Great. What's the bad, and where do I need to start? And one of the things I would always find out is that the setup of the assets was terrible. To give a perfect little story, when I started in the steel mill right after I got out of the Navy, I was working as the ladleman, doing maintenance on the ladles. They brought me in as the CMMS administrator. I was handed a piece of paper as they were doing the crossover or the upgrade into the EAM for Oracle, because I wanted to begin setting up the asset hierarchy. And I was handed a piece of paper with 10 line items. Now it's 400 yards of equipment, but there was only 10 line items on this piece of paper. And we're talking about a reheat furnace. We're talking about, rollers. We're talking about pumps, motors, magnets, hooks, material handling, just anything you could think of. 10 line items. Lo and behold, those 10 line items were just processes. It was the process of taking a large ingot of steel down to a coiled wire. That was it. And it was the one main piece of equipment for each one. So it was furnace, roller. It just broke it down that way. And I remember looking at this list, and I said, there's no way you could ever get any valuable data out of this. We're running it straight up to a parent asset, but there's no way to make improvements if the parent is always failing. And And that was my first deep dive into asset management and breaking it down, what I call the least common sense denominator. Depending on the company, they may not want to go past 2 or 3 levels. They may want to go just 1 or 2. Some folks want to go 4 or 5 levels. It all depends on how they want to break it down. But you can't just stop at the top parent. You can't associate all costs to a part. You need to know what component fails so that you can either re-engineer it, look for an alternative, or increase or decrease your maintenance on it. Not everything automatically means an increase in maintenance, and that's a misnomer. Just because something is failed, you may be the problem. You may be doing too much maintenance. Anytime we crack something open or do intrusive maintenance, there is that capability of human error. And now we've added a possible defect. So over time, I would pay attention. I just realized this is a constant problem. Everywhere I go, the assets are not captured correctly. They're either poorly numbered, they're not set up in a flow. That's one of the things I like to see is I like to set the assets up in a production flow to capture everything because it's a common sense move. So it puts you out in front of production. As we're part of the team and we want to be part of the business unit, we need to be one step ahead. So as we set the asset hierarchy up, we want to look at, let's say it goes from phase 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are your 4 phases of the process. If I see defects and I know in the meetings that I'm cresting that hill and I'm about to go into phase 3, then I probably should be there already making sure that all the defects and the problems, the PMs are gone so they have a smooth field moving through and finishing. And that's how we become part of the team as opposed to the us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
So that was always something. So again, see, this is where my hands start moving, passion project. So that was an issue I found. The next one was we've got this great tool, this great device, one of the best tools around, a CMMS. And it is literally, to quote Larry the Cable Guy, has turned into an $1,800 deck of cards. It's just a digital filing cabinet. It's barely used. And 9 times out of 10, I find it falls under poor implementation, no true sale on it, or no what I call the evangelist that talks to everybody and says, this is coming, this is how we're going to use it. And then finally, training. There's no real training on it. That's the one area for some reason that when we purchase a CMMS system, we just say, we don't need that. They'll figure it out. And that never seems to work out. And I see that constantly, time after time after time in companies. One of the things I loved about Upkeep, they throw in training. That's part of their thing. They really want you to get this training initially. And when I worked with, Dylan and setting that up, I said, honestly, I've been playing with it for a while and I've got it. And Dylan's like, yeah, you kind of got it. I said, but I want my team to have the training. So if I get hit by a bus, they get it. But for some reason, training was always a problem. So you've got asset hierarchy, you've got CMMS optimization, or for that matter, CMMS usage. Then we look at defect elimination. So many people, when they hear the word reliability, that's an RCM. That's immediately where they want to go. What do I need to do to bring up reliability? What do I got to do? Well, we need to do this reliability center. And then so they'll jump off on this journey of reliability centered maintenance. And it's not as difficult. There's great books out there. Nancy Reagan put out a fantastic book. I don't know if you've read it yet, but it's a phenomenal book. And it breaks down the process. But what you need is data. You need real data, not, off the wall data. You need something to go by so that you can create it. And you have to start digging into these defects and finding out what the problem is and working with operations. Sometimes the equipment is creating a defect on the product. Then you have to look at that. So there's a quality issue. So you dig into that. And then finally you get into PM optimization. Because again, some folks like to go, well, just optimize my CMMS and optimize my PMs. Well, your asset hierarchy is weak and you still are going to have defects if we don't look at what the problem is. If we don't do an FMEA on some of this stuff, you're not going to have any idea of what you need to work on. So you're just really throwing wasted labor or wrench time, which is a KPI that everybody wants to track.
Do you mind clarifying just what FMEA means? Because we do have a lot of people that know what it is, but just for those people that are like, well, I want to know what that really means, and they don't have to go to Google. What is FMEA?
It's failure modes effects analysis. So it's a dig into what you have your you have your component and what your function is and what it's supposed to do. So I buy a strainer and it's supposed to strain water whenever I pour, I'll just say, a can of peas in it or something. If that strainer doesn't hit that function, what ways can it fail? And what are some of the modes it can fail? And then what are the effects of its failure, not just on that area, but the expanding area as well? How does it affect your overall process? So it's failure modes and effect analysis.
All right.
Yeah, I kind of ran right through that. Sorry.
No. And a lot of times we just keep rolling because there are a lot of people that follow and support the podcast that are like that. Yeah, that's like a second language to them, right? But every now and then somebody will ask me, like I'm getting ready to start working on I want to work on a series around RCM, but I want it to be more along the lines of a primer type thing. And it's kind of tricky because if you do that, you may develop interest, and there are going to be plenty of people that will go run off on their journey and start doing things. So I want to be very careful with that, because what's happening of late, and I know I'm kind of segueing, and I know you're telling us all about the business, but just while we're on it, we have to be careful about that, because what happens is there's this kind of like a popularity thing, and then there's the buzzy, shiny stuff. Let's go talk about it. And then you got marketing people that are out there, and they're like, ooh, everybody likes this stuff. Let's talk about it, and that'll get them looking and all that. And it's like, hey, I know you're chasing your vanity metrics, and I'm not screwing around about that. I hate the vanity metrics because they don't mean jack squat. They really don't. They mean something to somebody, but they mostly mean nothing to the majority of people that are trying to consider buying your product or solving their problem. And I've been bitching about it for years, where I want marketing people, get in here and talk to customers. Quit telling us you know how to generate leads.
Right.
For what? I want the real deal. I want the person that has the problem and all that. Anyway, let's not spin out on that. But my whole point is I want to be mindful when we build these primers, because I don't want to send the wrong message and get people spinning out. Not that I'm that like an influencer or anything like that. I don't care about any of that stuff, but you get my point. That's why I wanted to hear it from you, because then somebody can hear it from a practitioner rather than me trying to pretend I understand that stuff. Once I get to that, deeper water, I'm like, yeah, I need a life vest right here. I'm going to have Chris explain this to you. Chris is actually a CMRP. Chris has done all these different plans, and they're like, Greg, you've rolled out thousands of CMMS platforms for all these people. Yeah, it doesn't matter, man. I want the expert talking about this stuff. I'll get there. I'll let you know when I think I'm there. So
and that's something I see is that, and you're 100% correct. As people jump, that is the buzzword for maintenance. It's RCM, and it is an extremely, extremely valuable tool. It's a highly beneficial tool. It is phenomenal, but that becomes a buzzword. It turns into total quality leadership. It turns it, all those things that have come and gone, and RCM needs to stay. That's why, our tagline, if you will, or the way I push my business is optimizing maintenance one task at a time. Slow down, do it right the first time, and you'll get to where you need to be. Don't jump on the, as you call it, the vanity KPI. Stay out of there. Let's set you up. Your asset hierarchy is great. You're using your CMMS as you need to. You're digging into your defects, and now you're optimizing your PMs. Now, your next obvious choice is, let's start looking at RCM. Let's start looking at reliability-centered maintenance. I am using my 4 functions the way they should be. They're all optimized. I'm comfortable. My team is trained. My operations team understands what I'm doing, what my team is doing. We're working cohesively. Now, since we're working cohesively now's the time to pull the trigger on RCM. And you know what? I've got the data to find out where to start.
Yeah. That's exactly it. That's one of the reasons we want to talk about it, and we like talking about it, because it's gonna be actual. It's gonna be something that actually helps somebody
absolutely
out there that hears it. And even if it doesn't, it's going to get somebody thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somebody will chime in and say, "Hey guys, I don't know if I agree with this." Cool, get it
Great. What do
in
you got?
here.
Yep.
Yeah, that's our job
Mm-hmm.
if we're out here evangelizing and touting best practices of any kind. Like for
Right.
me, I'm a keep it simple, stupid kind of guy.
Absolutely.
Make fun of me if you want, but I'm always telling people for years, hit the big rocks, get yourself into that the digitization kind of realm
Mm-hmm.
and move from your paper to a digital scenario and start figuring out what you're actually doing. You don't have visibility right now. Once you do, man, you're going to be able to do great stuff, even if you're
Absolutely.
doing a bunch of stuff wrong. It
Mm-hmm.
actually helps. I want to switch in to I got one quick question about CMMS generally speaking,
Mm-hmm.
and then I want to switch you to the fun question segment, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Okay.
So the question I want to make sure we get from that I want to ask you is service and support, like training, service and support and training from a CMMS provider, in your opinion, a differentiator. And I'll tell you why I'm asking. Years ago, I had a discussion with somebody and they asked me point blank, what's a differentiator about your product, regardless of the product? You know, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously today you use Upkeep, I'm an ambassador, but all things being equal, is that a differentiator even though it's not a feature?
Absolutely. It's absolutely one of the things I just got done preaching. Training, training, training. You are never going to get out of your system what you want until you train your folks. And the better the training they offer, the better involvement they offer. I mean, Upkeep has pages and pages and pages of support right at your fingertips. They offer training. They're willing to help you. Dylan is, I swear, he's been my right hand man throughout this entire thing, bringing Upkeep online.
Yeah.
The fact that they have the customer support and the training and all the support documentation was my final decision, because everybody is there to sell you the pretty flower. No one is there when it starts to wilt.
That's
Or
right.
if
You're
it's,
not watering it.
yep, there's no one there for you. That was not the case with Upkeep. They flooded me with information. Anytime I had a question, less than 24 hours, I had an answer. They offered the training, they pushed the training. Any one of my folks can ask a question with or without me. It's all right there at their fingerprints. So 100%, that is the final decision point. If I held three CMMS together and one sort of pushed training, one didn't push training, and one, look at all this training you can get, or look at this customer support we have, sold.
Yeah.
Because in
Yeah.
the long run, you're inevitably going to hit some kind of hiccup. It doesn't matter what CMMS system you use. You know, I used to joke around, say there hasn't been a CMMS system I haven't been able to break yet. It's going to happen. Now, how quickly do they resolve that problem for you? Because while they may have 1,800 problems that they're dealing with for customers worldwide, none of those are nearly as important to me as mine.
There you go.
That, you know, it's like I always try to teach my daughter as she started working. I said, the customer doesn't care about your problems. The customer cares about theirs. So when
Yeah.
you realize that, that's how you solve everything.
Yeah.
And Upkeep has been right on board the whole time. You know, I have had a couple of issues. I've sent it off to the help desk and it's come right back to me. Well, this is how you do this. You did this wrong. Perfect. I'm glad I did it wrong because it's fixed now.
Yeah.
So that's important to me. And so, yes, that is my final differentiator, if you will, the final nail in the coffin that pushed me towards Upkeep.
Good
Because
deal.
CMMSs can come and go, but it was this little thing that Upkeep did, this little thing that Upkeep did. Well, I can do these on kind of both. But then Dylan was in my back pocket helping me. Rio was in my back pocket helping me. Kevin, I've got a list of names. What company do you have that you have a list of names of people that are jumping on board helping? And I have their names. That was what did it. I now have friends in the industry helping me keep this online.
Good. And I love to hear that, regardless of the company, when people are taking their clients seriously. We all understand there's mathematics involved, right? It's finances and all that kind of stuff. But it's good. I love to hear when things are being done right. And I wanted to ask about that service, training, and support kind of aspect, because I've always been a big believer in it myself, regardless of what you do. I don't care if you're in software. I don't care what you do. Service is king. And everybody's like, man, that's some bullshit from the 50s. Damn right it is.
And it still works.
Yeah. So let's go to the fun question segment.
All right.
No wrong answers here. I'll just ask you the question and you just fire. Number 1, what's your favorite music?
Country.
All right. Number 2, what is your favorite sport or hobby? On sport, it doesn't have to be one that you play. It could be one you like to watch, support, and cheer for.
College football.
Nice. Question number 3. It's a fun question, but it's a serious one. No wrong answers here. What is your philosophy, perspective, opinion, anything at all on the idea of work-life balance?
Take charge.
All right. So
just that quick.
Yeah. And that's why I say it. There's no wrong answers. You can approach this any way you want to. It might help somebody, get them thinking. They might say, I don't believe that. Or they might say, damn, I think that too. Who knows, right? Kind of trying to stay in the middle, but I like to get on the fringe and kind of have an opinion, but not really an opinion. I really appreciate you spending this time with me, Chris. We got this put together pretty quickly, and we got lucky with the schedule and all that. So everybody out there, you can find Chris Smith online on LinkedIn if you want to hook up with him. It's Chris, Chris, and it's Smith, Smith, just in case anybody needed a little help spelling those. And then you can also visit atfco.com. That's where he works. And then the venture that's kind of on the side, but a passion project near and dear to his heart is Lytix. That's TaskLytix.com. And that's really all about maintenance and reliability solutions. You heard about some of it here. Man, this was awesome, man. I love chopping it up with you, and I can't wait to do it again. Chris, thanks for being on CMMS Radio.
Thank you.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.